They thought a pile of rocks could stop a man who had spent his whole life moving mountains. The morning it started. I was halfway through my coffee when my neighbor's kid came pounding on my front door like the house was on fire. He was out of breath, eyes wide, pointing down the dirt access road that cut behind my property. "Mr. Collins," he said, "you need to come see this. Right now." I knew something was wrong before I even stepped outside. The sound told me first. Silence. No tractor engine.
What in the
No
world?
trailer rattle.
These boulders
No
weren't
usual
here
morning
yesterday.
movement from my equipment shed. Just a strange, dead stillness hanging over the backside of my land. Then I saw it. 3 massive boulders, each one bigger than a washing machine, had been dropped directly across the narrow farm path I used every single day to get my tractor from the shed to the lower field. Not rolled there by kids. Not some natural accident. No, these had been placed with machinery. Deliberately, carefully, like somebody had planned it, measured it, and
What in the
smiled
world?
while doing it.
These boulders
My
weren't
tractor
here
sat trapped on
yesterday.
one side. My lower field sat waiting on the other. And right in the center boulder, spray painted in bright red letters, were the words, "Private HOA property. No access." I just stood there staring at it, coffee going cold in my hand, because that little dirt path had been there longer than the subdivision next door. Longer than their fake decorative gate. Longer than the matching mailboxes. Longer than the woman who had apparently decided she would rule the county. Her name was Vanessa Grady.
What in the world?
But nobody called
These
her
boulders weren't here
that. Everybody
yesterday.
called her Karen. Not to her face. Of course. Unless they wanted a 30-minute lecture about respect, community standards, and property values. Karen was president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, a neighborhood built on what used to be old ranch land right beside my farm. When the developers first came in 5 years ago, they had one clear condition. They could build all the beige houses and fake stone entryways they wanted.
What in the world?
But the historic
These
service
boulders
path
weren't here
running
yesterday.
behind my boundary stayed accessible. It was in the county records, in the land survey, and in the easement agreement their own developer signed. I knew that. The county knew that. The original builder knew that. Karen, apparently, knew it too. She just didn't care. Because Karen had spent the last year making it her personal mission to turn my farm into her home. According to her, my tractor was too loud. My chicken coop was
What in the
visually
world?
offensive.
These boulders
My hay
weren't here
deliveries were
yesterday.
disruptive to the luxury feel of the community. And my 2 old blue work trailers were bringing down the aesthetic. Aesthetic. That word was her religion. She'd sent me letters, fake violation notices, and once even taped a typed complaint to my own front gate telling me my barn roof was weathered beyond neighborhood standards. Neighborhood standards. Why didn't you live in her neighborhood? Karen had never let reality interfere with her confidence. So when I saw those boulders,
What in the world?
I knew exactly
These
who'd done
boulders
it.
weren't here
I
yesterday.
walked straight back to the house, pulled the old easement file from my cabinet, and drove down to the HOA office they ran out of the subdivision clubhouse. The office door was open. Karen was inside, standing beside a table covered in color-coded folders like she was running a small country instead of a retirement subdivision with a decorative pond. She looked up and smiled that smile people use when they already know why you're there. "Good morning," she said. "Can I help
What
you?"
in the world?
I set the
These
easement
boulders weren't
papers
here
on the desk
yesterday.
in front of her. "You put boulders across my access path." She barely glanced at the documents. "That path crosses Willow Creek common land. It crosses a recorded easement. It crosses HOA maintained property," she said, folding her hands. "And residents have made numerous safety complaints." "Residents?" I said. "Or you?" She leaned back in her chair with a clean granting mercy. "Mr. Collins, heavy farm equipment passing near our homes every morning is not
What in the
appropriate
world?
anymore."
These boulders
This
weren't
area
here
has changed.
yesterday.
"No," I said. "Your neighborhood showed up next to my farm. My farm didn't show up next to your neighborhood." That smile tightened. "We re-improving community standards. You blocked legal access. We restricted unauthorized use." I tapped the papers. "It is authorized." She finally looked at them, then pushed them back toward me with one manicured finger. "You can take it up with our attorney." That was the moment I understood exactly what kind of person Karen was.
What in the world?
She
These
wasn't
boulders weren't
confused.
here yesterday.
She wasn't misinformed. She was testing whether I'd be expensive to push around, and she thought she had the answer. I left without another word, because there's no point arguing with a person who mistakes patience for weakness. By noon, I had county records pulled, my surveyor called, and a voicemail from the original developer confirming the easement had never been revoked, as it legally couldn't be. By 2 in the afternoon, I had emailed the HOA the documents.
What in the
Copied
world?
The county land office.
These boulders weren't here
Politely
yesterday.
Informed them they had 24 hours to remove the obstruction before I pursued damages. Karen replied 12 minutes later. Your use of threatening language has been documented. The HOA will not be intimidated. I read it twice and laughed. Threatening language. Because ID asked her to stop trespassing on my rights. The next morning, the boulders were still there. And now there was a fresh sign zip tied to a post beside it. No farm vehicles. HOA enforced. That was when I stopped being polite.
What in the world?
See,
These boulders
Karen
weren't
had
here
one
yesterday.
weakness people like her always have. They believe power is a costume. A title. A clipboard. A stamped letterhead. They think if they act official enough, real authority will bow down. But I grew up on a farm. My father taught me something simple. If a man fences off your road, first check the deed. Then check whether he is dumb enough to leave his own gate open. Karen had left her gate wide open. Not the little neighborhood gate. That ugly wrought iron thing stayed closed most
What
of
in
the
the
time.
world? These
I mean the
boulders
legal
weren't
gate.
here yesterday.
Because in her rush to block my tractor, she used HOA funds, HOA contractors, and HOA property records to interfere with a recorded agricultural easement. She hadn't just annoyed me. She stepped into liability. And I had proof. I spent the next 3 days very quiet. Too quiet. Apparently, Karen drove by my place twice. Her silver SUV slowed down long enough for her to stare at the walking path like she was admiring a trophy.
What in the world?
Once,
These boulders
she even
weren't here
smiled and gave
yesterday.
her a wave. That wave cost her more than she knew. While she was celebrating, I was making calls. County Planning Office, Easement Enforcement Division. My attorney, Frank, who loved nothing more than humiliating petty bureaucrats. The excavation company logo on the tire tracks near the boulders. And, best of all, one of Karen's own HOA board members, a man named Richard, who was sick of her turning every monthly meeting into a
What in
dictatorship.
the world? These
Richard and
boulders
I met
weren't
for
here
coffee off the
yesterday.
highway. He looked nervous the whole time. You didn't get this from me. He said, got what? He slid a folder across the table. Inside were meeting minutes Karen never expected anyone outside the HOA to read. There it was in black and white. Vanessa Grady motioned to permanently restrict farm traffic from access corridor behind lots 1116 due to visual nuisance concerns. Motion passed after President asserted corridor was obsolete and
What in the world?
unenforceable.
These
Obsolete
boulders
and
weren't here
unenforceable.
yesterday.
I almost felt bad for how badly this was going to go. Almost. Frank filed the first legal notice that afternoon. County inspectors scheduled a site visit. The excavation company, once they realized they might be implicated, emailed over the work order without even being asked twice. Authorized by V. Grady, HOA President. Scope. Place decorative stone barriers at rear service corridor to prevent tractor entry.
What in the
Decorative
world?
stone barriers.
These boulders weren't
I
here
framed that
yesterday.
email in my mind before the week was even over. But here's the part Karen never saw coming. I could have waited for the county to find them. Could have waited for court. Could have let the lawyers drag it out for months. That would have been smarter, more civilized, and way less satisfying. Because 2 things happened on Friday morning. First, rain hit hard. Kind of cold. Ugly storm that turns dirt to soup and makes everything twice as miserable. Second, my
What
lower
in the
field
world?
flooded.
These boulders weren't here
disastrously,
yesterday.
but enough that I needed my tractor there immediately to cut drainage and move feed. That blocked path wasn't just inconvenient now. It was costing me time, work, and money. So I stood there in the rain, staring at those boulders, and I made a decision. If Karen wanted to move rocks around my property line, then maybe it was only neighborly to return them. Now let me be clear. I didn't steal anything. I didn't damage anything. I didn't cross any legal
What in the
lines
world?
my attorney
These
couldn't
boulders
sleep
weren't here
through.
yesterday.
Those boulders had been placed as an illegal obstruction against my easement. I had every right to remove the obstruction to restore access. The only creative part was where I set them down afterward. Willow Creek Estates had a grand entrance built for appearances. 2 brick columns, black iron gate, flower beds, a polished stone sign with gold lettering, and a circular drop-off lane in front where Karen liked to stand during community events wearing white pants and issuing instructions
What in the world?
nobody asked
These
for.
boulders weren't here
At 6:30
yesterday.
Saturday morning, while most of the subdivision still slept behind their plantation shutters. I fired up the loader. The sound alone felt like justice. I rolled down to the blocked path, chained the first boulder, and dragged it aside. Slow, steady, legal, beautiful. Then the second, then the third. Path cleared, access restored. At that point, most people would have stopped. I did not. I hauled those same 3.
What in the world?
Decorative
These
stone
boulders
barriers,
weren't here
one
yesterday.
by one down the public road to the entrance of Willow Creek Estates, and placed them carefully across the outer side of their circular entry lane. Right in front of the big polished sign. Not on private driveways. Not on anyone's lawn. Not inside the gate. Just perfectly. Magnificently. Unmistakably blocking the fancy front entrance lane Karen bragged about in every HOA. And because I have a sense of humor, I leaned their own sign against the middle boulder. No
What in
access.
the world?
HOA
These
enforced.
boulders weren't here
And I
yesterday.
drove home and made pancakes. By 8:15, my phone was exploding. Karen called 6 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Remove those immediately. This is vandalism. You have made a serious mistake. I read them while pouring syrup. Then I got the voicemail. Her voice was shaking with outrage. How dare you touch HOA property? How dare you obstruct our entrance? I am calling the sheriff. I am calling the county. And you are going to regret this.
What in the world?
I saved that message.
These boulders weren't here
And the sheriff did
yesterday.
show up. He walked the site, looked at the recorded easement papers I handed him, looked at the county complaint already on file, looked at the work order with Karen's name on it, and then asked me the most beautiful question a man in my position can hear. So these are the same rocks they used to block your legal access? Yes, sir. And you removed the obstruction? Yes, sir. You placed them here on public frontage outside the gated entry?
What in
Yes,
the world?
sir.
These boulders weren't
He
here
scratched his jaw
yesterday.
and glanced toward Karen, who was standing there in a matching tracksuit with 3 board members behind her like angry backup singers. Then he said, "Ma'am, this looks like a civil matter. I have heard symphonies less beautiful than that sentence." Karen's face went from pink to red to something almost purple. "This is harassment," she shouted. The sheriff looked at her. "Did your HOA block a recorded easement?" Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again.
What in the world?
That S under
These
review.
boulders weren't here
He nodded
yesterday.
once. "Then I suggest you review it quickly." And he left. That should have been the end of it. It was not. Because people like Karen Donti lose quietly. They escalate. They make themselves the victim. They run on outrage the way tractors run on diesel. By noon, she sent a neighborhood-wide email claiming I had launched an aggressive intimidation campaign against the HOA. She posted blurry pictures of my loader on the community Facebook group
What
with
in the
captions
world?
about
These boulders weren't
hostility.
here yesterday.
and dangerous behavior. She even implied I had threatened residents. Big mistake. Because Richard, the same board member who met me for coffee, had finally had enough. At the emergency HOA meeting that evening, Karen expected applause. Instead, she walked into a room full of residents holding printouts. My printouts. I emailed the meeting minutes. These no records. County notice. Excavation work order.
What in the world?
And Karen S.
These
threatening
boulders weren't here
voicemails to
yesterday.
every board member 2 hours before the meeting, along with one simple line. Thought your residents deserved context. Context hit Willow Creek like a tornado. Suddenly the story wasn't tea. Farmer terrorizes HOA. It was. HOA president illegally used dues to start a personal war with neighboring landowner and may have exposed entire community to a lawsuit. That changes a room fast. Residents started asking questions Karen couldn't scream over. How much
What in
did
the
the
world?
stones cost?
These boulders
Did our
weren't
dues
here
pay for
yesterday.
this? Why were you told about the easement and ignored it? Why is the county involved? Are we liable? Richard later told me that Karen tried to regain control by banging a decorative gavel on the folding table and accusing everyone of being manipulated by outside influence. Outside influence. Meaning facts. The board voted that night to demand immediate removal of the boulders from the entrance, issue a formal apology, and suspend Karen S. authority pending legal
What in the
review.
world? These
Karen
boulders
refused.
weren't here
Not
yesterday.
metaphorically. Literally refused. According to 3 witnesses, she stood up in that clubhouse, pointed at the board, and said, "You are all cowards. If I have to protect this community alone, I will." That was the moment she stopped being a nuisance and became entertainment. Because Monday morning, she tried one last move. I woke up to counting trucks on the road and assumed they were there for the site inspection schedule. They were not.
What
Karen
in the world?
had called in an
These
anonymous
boulders weren't here
complaint
yesterday.
accusing me of operating unlicensed agricultural equipment, violating setback ordinances, and illegally storing fuel. She wanted inspectors crawling all over my place before the HOA's own inspection caught up with her. That would have been cute if everything on my farm wasn't already spotless. I keep my licenses current, my tanks documented, my setbacks measured. Farm life teaches you one thing fast. Paperwork matters when somebody with a clipboard
What in
wants
the
to
world?
make your day difficult.
These boulders weren't here
County
yesterday.
inspectors spent 40 minutes on my property, found nothing wrong, then drove straight to Willow Creek's entrance to inspect the actual easement obstruction complaint that Karen had hoped to distract them from. By lunch, they issued a formal violation notice to the HOA. Remove obstruction immediately. Restore access. Potential penalties pending further review. It was posted right there at the clubhouse door. Karen tore it down within the hour. Unfortunately for Karen,
What in the
several
world?
residents had already
These boulders
photographed
weren't
it.
here
That
yesterday.
evening, the board held another emergency meeting. This time, Karen didn't leave as president. She left as the subject of an audit. Turns out, once people started digging, the boulders were just the shiny part of the problem. There were landscaping invoices nobody recognized, legal consultation charges with no board vote, gate repairs billed twice, beautification, expenses that somehow always seem to center around the lots visible from Karen's
What in the
favorite
world?
walking route.
These boulders
People
weren't
who
here
love
yesterday.
controlling small things often get careless with big ones. By Wednesday, the HOA's attorney contacted Frank offering to settle. Full restoration of the easement. Written apology. Reimbursement for my delays and attorney fees. Internal governance changes. No admission of wrongdoing. Of course, because organizations love pretending accountability. Frank read the offer and grinned. You want the fun part. Here has the fun part. He tapped the last
What in the
page.
world?
As
These
part of the
boulders weren't
settlement,
here yesterday.
the HOA wanted my agreement not to publicly discuss the matter with local media, county agricultural groups, or future buyers. In other words, they were terrified. That's when I knew the twist hadn't even happened yet. Because that same afternoon, Richard called me laughing so hard he could barely speak. "You sitting down?" He asked. "I am on a tractor. Better. Baroness house. What about it?" She never got final
What in the
HOA
world?
approval for the
These
front
boulders
yard
weren't here
redesign she
yesterday.
forced on everyone else. I killed the engine. What? Oh, it gets better, he said. She signed violation notices against half the neighborhood over mailbox colors, potted plants, and holiday decorations. Meanwhile, her own front yard changes stone fountain, extended flower wall, decorative light posts were never approved. No forms, no review, nothing. I just stared across my field, smiling
What in the
slowly.
world? These
Tell me the
boulders
board
weren't here
noticed.
yesterday.
They noticed, he said, and since she asked no longer protected, they served her with a compliance order this morning. I laughed so loud the cows looked up. After all that, after all the lectures, letters, fines, warnings, and fake authority, Karen got cited by her own HOA. For her fountain, for her lights, for the little decorative stone wall she rebuilt to make her house look executive. Apparently the violation
What in the
notice
world?
gave her 30 days
These boulders
to
weren't
remove the
here
unapproved
yesterday.
structures or face daily penalties. The same language she used on everyone else. Exactly the same. Poetry exists. And it gets better. 3 days later, a local contractor I knew sent me a picture while he was working in Willow Creek. It showed Karen standing in her yard, arms crossed, watching laborers remove the decorative stone wall from around the flower beds. Guess what the wall was made of? Gritstone boulders. Not as big as the ones from my path, but close enough to make the universe feel very interested in symmetry. Then came the final shock.
What in the world?
Remember how Karen
These
had
boulders
acted like
weren't
the
here
easement
yesterday.
was obsolete and unenforceable. Turns out she had a reason for wanting it gone. During the board audit, residents discovered that Karen had been quietly pushing a long-term plan to beautify the rear boundary of the subdivision with a privacy berm, ornamental trees, and a walking trail extension. Sounds innocent, right? Except the plans overlapped my recorded access corridor. She hadn't T-blocked my tractor path because it bothered residents. She
What in
blocked
the
it
world?
because she wanted to erase
These boulders
it.
weren't here
She was betting
yesterday.
that if she could keep me off it long enough, confuse the records, bully the board, and physically redesign the area, she could eventually claim the path was abandoned and fold it into HOA landscaping. She wasn't just being petty. She was trying to steal a working piece of my land access by burying it under flower beds and decorative nonsense. That revelation detonated what little support she had left. Residents were furious, not because they cared about my tractor, necessarily, but because nobody likes finding out their HOA president was running private land schemes with public dues.
What in the
settlement
world?
changed after
These
that.
boulders weren't here
Right.
yesterday.
Frank went back hard. Full written acknowledgement of the easement. Survey stakes installed at HOA expense. Permanent recorded notice filed with the county so no future board could misunderstand. Yet again, compensation for business disruption. And one more thing I personally requested. A formal letter, signed by the current board, stating that I was not responsible for any damage, inconvenience, or cost associated with the removal and
What in the world?
relocation of the illegal
These boulders
boulder
weren't here
obstruction.
yesterday.
In plain English, a legal document saying I had every right to move those rocks. They signed it. Karen, meanwhile, moved out before summer. Not immediately. People like her never leave immediately. First came the rumors, then the closed blinds, then the house listing nobody was supposed to notice. Executive-style home in premium gated community. The mention of the audit, compliance violations, or the fact that the neighborhood
What
she
in the
once
world?
ruled now
These
avoided
boulders
eye
weren't here
contact when
yesterday.
she walked by. The day the moving truck came, I happened to be repairing fence near the road. Total coincidence. Her SUV pulled out first, then the truck. Then Karen herself stood at the end of the driveway for a moment, looking back at the house like a deposed monarch. And because the universe has a wicked sense of humor, the truck had to pause at the entrance gate. Why? Because the HOA was installing new stone markers around the front lane after removing the old landscaping.
What in the world?
3 big decorative
These boulders
rocks
weren't
sat
here
off to the
yesterday.
side waiting to be placed. Karen looked at them. Then she looked across the road and saw me leaning on my fence post. I tipped my hat. She turned away so fast she nearly lost a shoe. These days, the tractor path is still there. Clear, surveyed, and properly marked. I use it every morning. Sometimes Willow Creek residents wave when I pass. A few even buy eggs from me on weekends. Richard became the new board president. From what I hear,
What in the
meetings are
world?
wonderfully boring
These
now,
boulders weren't here
which is how they
yesterday.
should be. As for the original 3 boulders, the HOA asked if I wanted them hauled off after the settlement. I told them no. I kept one beside the lower field as a reminder. The second I set near the shed. And the third, that one sits right by the farm entrance with a small brass plaque I had made for myself. It says, "Decorative stone barrier, removed and relocated, after unauthorized HOA enforcement. Every now and then, somebody asks about
What
it,
in the world?
and I tell
These
them the truth.
boulders weren't here yesterday.
HOA Karen once tried to block my tractor path with boulders, so I moved them to her entrance. And that was the first mistake she made all by herself.